This is Adjutant Introuvable with a Ancients battle. So I'm figuring out how to do the battlefield analysis for this DBA battle. It's going to be Ancient Britons against the Roman army. I'm the player, so I'm going to choose to have the Ancient Britons, and I'm going to get Adjutant Introuvable to play Rome, or work out the strategy and battle the side of the Romans. So first of all, we start by doing battlefield analysis. So we start by drawing the map. So this is what the battlefield looks like. We've got the player deployment zone on this side. We've got AI deployment zone on this side. So we've got a fort here in the middle on the player deployment side. Then there's a wood in the center, and that's defined as closed with AI rules. And then on the AI deployment zone, there's some hills, which are defined as hills. And then I've also shown two asterisks. So these stars represent the camps. And in DBA, they are like objectives, so it's important we mark those on our map. And you'll see why later, because we have to do some modifiers related to those. So let's get started with the battlefield analysis. We're going to use the battlefield analysis chart here and the battlefield analysis table down below. So we basically take our three zones, and so the three zones are Adjutant Introuvable side, you've got a hold zone, and then an attack zone, and then a charge zone. So let's just mark those on the battlefield map. There's the hold, there's the attack, and there is the charge. Okay, so let's start bottom right. So AI deployment zone on the right there, it's open. There's no other terrain features, so it's open and it's hold. So now we look at the battlefield analysis chart, and we look down the open column and across on the row that says hold, and where those 2 points meet, we see it's 0. So that's the figure I need to put in that box there, 0. But we must check for modifiers before we put that figure in. So looking across here, if there's a road towards the enemy, then it's +1. We don't have that. If there's some kind of blockage like a stream or a hedge, then there's a -1. We don't have that. And if there's an objective in that area, then there's a +1. We have got an objective. We've got that camp in that terrain zone. So we've got open and hold, which is 0. We've got +1 modifier, so I put 1 in the box. Okay, next zone. Let's have a look at this zone. So this is the attack zone. Again, it's open. So it's open and it's attack. So that gives us a value of 5. So that's the value I put in the next box, 5. And then towards the enemy deployment zone, again it's open, but this is now the charge zone. So looking at open, cross-referencing with charge, I get 3. So that's the value I put in that box. Now we add these up. So I've got 1, which I then put across into the circle. 1 plus 5 gives me 6, which I put across into the circle. 1 plus 5 plus 3 gives me 9, which I put across into that circle. And then there's also an ambush figure up here. So we use the terrain for the charge right to work out the ambush. So it's open. So coming down here, we've got open, cross-referencing across to ambush. We see the figure is 4, so that's what I put in the circle. Okay, and then we just continue in the same way to fill out the battlefield analysis table. So here we've got hills. It's the hold zone. So hill and hold is 3. And next one, we've got woods, so that's closed. So closed and attack. There's closed and attack. That value will be 2. And then at the back, we've got a fort. So this is fort and charge. So fort and charge. The value is 0. So I should put 0 in here. But I've noticed I've got an objective, so I need to plus 1. So I put a 1 rather than a 0. And let's just add those up. So I've got 3 here, so into the circle I put a 3. Got 3 plus 2, that gives me 5. 5 goes in the circle. 3 plus 2 plus 1, 6 goes into that circle. And then over onto the left flank, so back to the battlefield, I've got hold and it's open. So open and hold is 0. Next one over here is open as well, so open and attack gives me 5. And then right at the back, open again, so open and charge gives me 3. So 3 in that box. Add them up as before, so 0 comes across into the circle, 0. 0 plus 5 gives me 5 into the circle. 0 plus 5 plus 3 gives me 8 into the circle. And there's also an ambush on this side. So again, it's open terrain, open, ambush, the value is 4. And that's the battlefield analysis complete. So now we've completed our battlefield analysis, we can go on to the strategy selection. So let's come across the other side and have a look at that. So strategy selection, you can see all the way down here we've got a bunch of different strategies. Let's just read those, read 1 or 2 so you can see how they work. So we've got a triangle which means attack, our rectangle which means hold, and our double triangle which means charge. So a charge would be a rapid attack, an attack would be obviously moving towards the enemy, and a hold would be basically holding position. There's also an R, a box with an R, and that's the reserve, so that's where the reserve would be located. So there's 4 parts to each of these strategies. As you look down, there's always 4 parts. On some of these there's also a star, so a star indicates an ambush force. So just reading that strategy, for example, here we got a charge on the left, so it's like a left hook while we hold the center in position and also bring the right around into an attack. So it's a kind of envelopment emphasizing the left side. The next one's an envelopment emphasizing the right side. The third one there is like an oblique attack. So there's 3 attacks, but they're staged. So this would be a first stage attack, a second stage attack, and a third stage attack. So gradually moving forward, but at an angle towards the enemy. So yeah, a whole bunch of strategies all listed out there, some with ambushes, and the bottom ones that are greyed out are defensive options. So let's see how we use our battlefield analysis to fill in the strategy selection table. So here on the left side we've got charge. So I'm looking on our left flank and looking for the charge figure. So here's the charge, reading across onto the left, we can see the value in the circle is 8. So that's the value I put in over here. Next, in the center, we've got hold. So looking on our analysis chart, we can see hold here. This is the center, the value in the circle is 3, so I transfer that over to here. And then on the right, we can see we've got an attack. So looking at our battlefield analysis table or chart here, we've got attack on the right. The value is 6 in the circle. So I'm taking that and putting it over here. And then we're just adding all of those up. So that will give us 17. Yep. Okay, and then we just work down all the strategies like that, filling in these boxes. So attack on the left is 5. Hold in the center is 3. Taking the values from the circles. Charge on the right is 9. That will give us 17 as well. Next one down, we've got attack on the left, which is 5, attack in the centre, which is 5, attack on the right, which is 6, that gives us 16. And so we just work down the whole range of strategies. Let's come back when that's done. So that's the strategy selection table complete. Gone through and filled in all of those based on our battlefield analysis. And we can see top value is 17, lowest value is 4. Defensive options really aren't selected with this terrain type. So what we need to do now is pick out the top 3 totals. So we identify the top 3 totals, and we've actually got 3 that are equal first place with 17. So we have to use decider dice to decide which one's 1, which one's 2, which one's 3. So we do that first. So I'll say if the dice score is 1 or 2, this will be first place. 3 or 4, this will be first place. 5 and 6, this will be first place. So we got a 6. So this is our number 1 strategy. And then let's work out between these two. So 1, 2 or 3 on the dice, 4, 5 or 6 on the dice. So 1, 2 or 3. So this is our second strategy. And then finally, that's our number 3. So now we throw a dice. And if we get a dice score of 1, the third strategy is selected. If we get a dice score of 2 or 3, the second strategy is selected. And if we get a dice score of 4 to 6, we'll pick the first strategy. There we go. So it's 3. So plan number 2 is selected. So this is the plan we're going to use. So our strategy selected was charge on the left, hold in the center, and attack on the right. So we now go on to our next page, our tactical status page, and we just have a look at this. We can see that we've got dice markers there, pip markers that tell us what these values equal. So we can see that here 5 indicates charge, 4 indicates attack, and 3 indicates hold. So I'm just going to put those values across onto the other side of this chart. So we've said that on our left we've got charge, in our center we've got hold, and on our right we've got attack. So that just keeps a record of where we're at with our strategy. So our strategy can evolve as the battle progresses. On move 1 we must activate charge forces and check for ambush activation. Same for move 2. We activate second stage attacks and check for ambush activation. On move 3 we move the third stage attacks and check for ambush. And then on move 4 we then check the tactical status. So the tactical status on move 4 may change. So these may be raised or lowered depending on what's happening on the battlefield. So the tactical situation, tactical actions can evolve throughout the battle. And we also keep checking for reserve allocation from move 4 onwards. So let's have a look next at the force allocation table. So what force are we actually going to put into our left charge, our left attack force, our center hold force, and our right attack force? That's the next thing to work out, and we're going to use the force allocation table to do that. So this is the force that's going to be allocated. You can see I've got legionnaires, auxilia, got some cavalry, I've got artillery, I've got skirmishers, slingers, and I've got the general. So I've broken these into 4 types for Adjutant Introuvable. So Adjutant Introuvable requires regular troops, fast troops, support troops, and elite troops to be defined. So I've defined the legionnaires as regulars. So these are my regular forces, the auxilia and the cavalry. Within these rules I've defined them as light. And then for this game I've also defined the artillery as support forces, but also the skirmishers. I've defined those as support forces as well. And then my elite is the general figure with his bodyguard. So let's just have a look at how we allocate forces. So we start by, well, we actually work through the actions. So these are the priorities of actions. So we start with ambush, then we do charge forces, then after that we do attack forces, then hold forces, and finally reserve forces. So we don't have any ambush forces, so we can ignore that one, and we go on to the next one, which is charge. So we have got a charge force on our left flank. So we start by allocating regular forces. So we need to throw a 4+ on a dice to allocate each of the regular units. So I've got four regular units, so I need 4+ on a dice for each of those to allocate them. So I've got a 5 and a 6, so that means 2 of those have been allocated to the charge force. Okay, next we go on to the fast troops, and I can see for the charge force they need a 5+. So I've got 5 units there, so I'll do 4 and do the last one. So 5+, there's a 6, so that allocates 1, and I need to throw 1 more dice. 2, so the cavalry unit is not allocated. Next is support. So for a charge force, if there's a dash, that means no forces are allocated, so we don't need to allocate support forces. And then elite force, let's see if we get a 6 to allocate the elite force. No. Okay, so that's our charge force. That's been allocated as our charge force, so I'll put them to one side. Okay, next we go on to the attack force. So with the attack force, which is on our right flank, we can see that regular forces again are allocated on 4+. So I've got 2 left, so 2 dice. There's a 6, so 1 is allocated. Next we go on to fast. So for fast forces, for attack, we can see that we need a 6. So I've got 4 forces left. I'm going to do 3 for the auxilia and 1 separate one for the cavalry. So we're looking for 6s. There is a 6, so that's 1 auxilia. Now I need to throw 1 more dice for the cavalry. No, not a 6. So cavalry is not allocated. And then we look at support forces. So 5+. So I've got artillery and skirmishers. So artillery first, 5+, no. And then skirmishers, no. So neither of those have got 5 or more, so they're not allocated. And then for the attack force, we don't have any elite allocated, so we can skip that one. And now we go on to the hold force. So hang on, let's just have a look at the attack force. So that's the attack force. And let's now work out what troops we've got in the hold force. So again, regulars, 4+. So we've only got 1 left. It's a 3. But notice that asterisk next to the 4+. So if there's an asterisk next to the number, that means if there is 1 unit that can be allocated, it must be allocated. So for the hold force, we will allocate that 1 remaining unit. For fast units, none are allocated. Support units, all are allocated. Okay, so for the hold force, so we take both of those, our artillery and skirmishers, and we allocate those to the hold force. And for elite, again we see for elite, none are allocated to the hold force. So that's it. So the center force, our hold force, has been created. Now everything that remains becomes the reserve. So all of these forces are general, 2 auxiliary and a cavalry are our reserve force. So that is how we allocate the troops. So on our left, our centre and our right, those are the forces we're going to have, and then in reserve we will have these forces. So remember how our forces were to be deployed. We were to have charge on the left, hold in the centre, and attack on the right, which equated to a 5-3-4 set out according to the tactical actions codes. So let's have a look at what we've got on the battlefield. So this is our charge force. So 1 auxiliary, 2 legionnaires, and that's backed up by the reserve force, which is the cavalry and the general, and 2 auxiliary units. In the centre we have the hold force, which is the artillery, skirmishers, the slingers, and another legionnaire unit. And then over on the right, our attack force, we have auxiliary and legionnaire units. Okay, so that's the battlefield setup, ready to begin. So the ancient Britons have already been deployed before we did the battlefield analysis. So let's see how that battle works out. So here's the tactical status. So you'll remember that we've worked out the tactical status for the left, the centre and the right. So the left was charge, the centre was hold, and the right was advance. So we're now at move 4, just about to start move 4, and those forces, the charge, the attack and the hold, have been following the tactical actions that are given in this column over here. So they've been working those out on the battlefield, and this is the situation so far. So on the left we can see we've got the reserve, AI's reserve. That still hasn't been activated. We're going to check for activation this move, move 4. The the charge force has come forward. It's advanced quite a long way. It's been engaged in fighting chariot forces. It's also been attacked from the rear, but it's still going forward, still advancing, still doing what it's supposed to be doing. In the centre we have the hold force. So this was activated on turn 3, and it's received an attack from the front, which it's busy fighting off at the moment. And then on the right we had the charge force, which had moved forward and started moving in move 2, turn 2. It had been attacked by chariots and light horse that had tried to get past it. It had successfully destroyed a chariot unit, but the light horse has moved past, and they've been turned by 90 degrees by that action, but their goal is still to advance. So this is the current situation at the moment on the table. But now we're on to turn 4, about to start turn 4, and on turn 4 we need to do a few checks. So we check this tactical status. This is the first turn in which the tactical status might change. So I'm going to roll a dice. So we'll start over with the charge force on the left. So I roll a dice and I see I've got a score of 4. I also check for modifiers. So we've had a superior force on the left. So we've got 3 units versus 2 units. So we add 1 for that. So that makes the score 5. And we've also had a success in that they've defeated one chariot force, so that brings them up to a score of 6. And any score of over 5 or more means that the tactical status increases. So we're now moving from tactical status 5 to tactical status 6, which, if we check across on tactical actions, now is a breakthrough. So it's an even more aggressive attack that's going to happen on the left. In the centre, the tactical status at the moment is hold, so that's 3. So let's just see if that's going to change at all. So we've got a score of 3. They have had a success here in that they've defeated one of the Ancient Britain stands, so that would make them 4. That's a score of 4. And what else have I got to check for? Are they numerically superior? Well, 3 units versus 3 units, so no, so it's just +1, so they're up to 4. So it's not greater than 5, so they're not changing. So they remain on 3. They remain as a hold force. And then let's just check on the right. So we've got a score of 5 there. They've also had a success in defeating a chariot unit, destroying a chariot unit, so they're up to 6. And they're opposing 2 units, and they are 2 units, so they're not numerically superior or inferior. So they've got a score of 6, which means they do go up to 5. So the right force now, the right flank force, is now become a charge force. So we've got breakthrough attack on the left, we've got hold in the centre, we've got a charge force on the right. So that's the new tactical situation. Move 4, we also need to check for reserves. So are the reserve forces going to be activated? And they'll be activated on a score of 4+. And that's 5. So they are activated. Another dice score to see how that reserve force is allocated. And it's a score of 5. So all reserves sent to support the main attack. So all the reserve force will be sent towards the breakthrough force. So that's how we check for reserve allocation, and that's how we also check for tactical status updates. So each move from now on, from move 4 onwards, we're checking for the tactical situation of Adjutant Introuvable's forces and updating depending on successes, depending on opposition. So that's an overview of how Adjutant Introuvable works. Gives a good tactical deployment to start with, and then just keeps going throughout the battle with tactical actions which are updated. Ambushes and reserves are released as you progress through the battle, and on the whole usually gives a good fight, and occasionally, like this time, it actually defeats you. Okay, that's all for now.